I still remember the day I walked into the kitchen, a mix of anticipation and dread swirling in my gut like the restless larvae I had studied for so long. My mother stood at the stove, her back to me, cooking something unrecognizable, probably a family recipe that had long since lost its appeal. The scent of something roasted filled the air, a hollow mockery of home. I could hear my father and siblings in the living room, their voices echoing in taunts, echoing the ridicule they'd hurled at me for years. "Another one of your crazy projects," my brother's voice rang out, sharp as a knife. "How's the world of insects treating you, eh? Swatting flies in a lab?" That was the moment I knew I had to tell them. I had accepted the truth. I was no longer the laughingstock of my family. I was the Maggot whisperer now, a consultant sought after by farmers desperate to save their livestock from horrors they refused to acknowledge. But did they care? Did they ever even ask how my career had evolved during my exile? Not once. "It's not just insects," I tried to speak, my voice trembling with the weight of what I had seen, what I had learned. "There are deeper truths that—" "Truths? Like those peasant myths you're so fond of?" My sister's voice was laced with venom. The room's tension flickered, thickening with the heat of their mockery. "You either laughed or suffered." I chose to suffer. I felt the familiar sting of their disbelief, a nagging memory of my dismissal from the agricultural lab 3 years prior. My reports on mysterious worm infestations in livestock had been met with laughter. My colleagues had dubbed me a paranoid fool, a lunatic in a field of doom and gloom. They were right in one sense. There was no glory in prediction if the world refused to listen. In that living room, a cacophony of scorn washed over me. But I was no longer the naive scientist they had ridiculed. The truth was far darker than any of them could fathom. Days turned into nights as I immersed myself in the neglected lore of parasitic pests. I combed through ancient texts and dark corners of the internet, searching for ways to control flesh-eating larvae. Rituals spoken in whispered tones, old wives' tales, all of it. It had led me to echoes of dread that entwined with humanity's food chain. Years passed. Moth-eaten farming journals now offered me the prestige I deserved. I earned accolades for my uncanny knack for diagnosing infestations that left others sleepless. I was invited to farms where livestock writhed in agony, their bellies swollen with strange worms whispering secrets in the dark. My findings shocked the agricultural community. The maggots were not just pests, but harbingers of calamity, linked to a curse older than memory, a truth too grotesque for the world to face. And now, here I stood, a man with a crown adorned by the very horrors I sought to unveil. The door creaked open, and I took a deep breath. They needed to see me, to understand the monster they had made of me. I stepped into the living room, and their laughter faded into a stunned silence. The scars of disbelief etched on their faces were raw and fleeting. I could see the glimmer of fear in their eyes. "I've come to show you something," I whispered, my tone thick with foreboding. "Something you will never forget." I reached into my bag, the familiar weight of it pulling at my shoulder. Inside, I carried a vial, its contents swirling in a grotesque dance of muted colors. I held it tight, caressing it like a long-lost child, and watched as their expressions twisted from disbelief to horror. "What is that?" my father finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. "Something I extracted from the latest infestation," I replied, my lips curling into a grim smile. "Maggots with a purpose. They can whisper, you know. They speak of darkness, of loss, of an endless hunger." "What are you saying?" My sister's voice cracked. It was no longer playful, but edged with panic. "Outside, Lines of wind rattled against the window, as if echoing the growing dread in the room. I could see the hesitation in their eyes, the slow understanding creeping in. I tilted the vial, letting the contents glimmer in the light. A grotesque mosaic of life and decay that danced at the cusp of reality and madness. They want to be heard, I continued, feeling the thrill of my dark knowledge surge through me, my pulse quickening. They are the infestation you all laughed at. They know the secrets of the land, the pain of every beast that breathes and dies by your hands. And then it happened. The shadows erupted, coiling around the room like living tendrils, drawing the light away and filling the air with an unbearable chill. My family, a tableau of disbelief, flinched as the larvae screeched. Their primal chorus filled the space, rising like a tide, crashing against the walls of our home, and with it, the weight of their ridicule echoed back to them. Fear washed over their faces as the room grew darker, shadows writhing in the corners. I could see my brother backing away, my father frozen in place, disbelief morphing into terror. And for the first time, I felt empowered. No longer the disgrace they once knew, the lunatic whom they had tossed aside. I was their reckoning. In that moment, they faced the very real consequences of their mockery. They were now part of the whispers, forever marked by the darkness they had dismissed. The horrors I had endured were now specters among us, incarnated by the truths they had long refused to acknowledge. And as I watched their realization dawn, the tears in their eyes, I felt a chilling vindication. They were not just witnesses. They were kneeling before the altar of their disbelief, the very thing that had driven me to torment. In the end, it was not my success that echoed in the silence, but the haunting silence that followed the revelation of my existence. I held the vial close, a terrible trophy of what I had learned, of what they would now carry with them forever. I didn't lose my mind, I whispered softly. I transcended it. The world you dared to mock, now it seeks to devour you. And as I turned to leave, their shadows danced around them, forever entangled with the horrors they would never escape. I knew I wasn't just returning home. I was leaving them to reap the rewards of their disbelief, a chilling poetic justice woven into the very fabric of our shared reality. And as the door closed behind me, I couldn't help but smile, carrying the weight of their realization like a crown. The maggot whisperer, no longer derided, but feared.